thank you all once again for being here. I was actually a student back in the early 70s when Hancher opened. And so I watched the building open. I actually went into the building even before it opened. And I was there for the opening season, had so much fun, and little did I know that someday I would be lucky enough to be working there. And I'll never forget the big hoopla, all the excitement, the Daily Iowan. Everybody was talking about this place called Hancher, and nobody really knew what Hancher was all about. And now 40 years later, because we just celebrated our 40th anniversary, I stop once in a while and I think about our opening of the new Hancher is going to really be a lot of hoopla, because we've had 40 years of developing relationships, friendships, in the community, in the region, in the state, in the country, and even internationally. Hancher is so well known. So for years we've talked about Hancher is more than a building. And the reason for that is we spend a lot of time in classrooms across campus. We have fabulous, wonderful relationships with all the elementary, middle school, high schools around the local community in the region. And we really have been in a lot of community organizations, and we have done statewide work for years and years and years. But little did we know after 2008 that we could now literally prove that Hancher is more than a building. And I've got to say that I'm so proud of the staff, and really kind of proud, of what I've done too for the last 5, going on 6 years now, is that the peers, people that we do the same work that we do around the country, they marvel at the sorts of things that we've been able to do without a building. And they keep asking, how do you guys keep this level of activity up? How do you present without a building? And I always go back to our mission. I always say what I'm proud of more than anything is the fact that throughout this time we have stayed very true to our mission. And I always talk about our mission as being right in line with the mission of the university in terms of learning, discovery, and public engagement. We bring world-class artists and we engage them in learning, discovery, and public engagement. So all I want to do today is I just want to share some examples of Hancher being more than a building, because it's interesting, because a lot of people who I talk to, whenever I can get their ear to talk about Hancher, they're amazed at the sorts of things that we've done over the years, because they always think that we're just all about performances. So I want to start off with an example. This was back in 2007. We got a grant from the Doris Duke Foundation. It was under their program called the Creative Campus Innovations Program. And this was all about Doris Duke's belief that presenters, such as a Hancher on university campuses, they can really add to the academic mission of a university. They can really reach out to students and really enrich the educational experience of students, and at the same time invigorate faculty, really give faculty a chance to look at their work in a different way. So this was a very competitive process, but I'm proud to say that we were one of 8 funded. And as I said, this was back in 2007, before the flood. And this was a project. They told us they wanted us to think in non-traditional ways, in very creative ways, but reach across the academy. So what we did is we partnered with the Center for Macular Degeneration. You've all heard of Ed Stone. He's a rock star. He's amazing. He's actually a very good friend of mine. So it was the Center for Macular Degeneration. Rindy Eckert. Rindy is a performance artist. He's had a relationship with Hancher for about the last 20 years. He's from New York. He's a writer. He's a singer. He's an actor. He actually graduated from the University of Iowa School of Music. We also had a partner with the creative writing program in the College of Medicine. And then another partner was theater arts, students from the University of Iowa Department of Theater. And so what we did is Rindy spent about 7 weeks at different times coming to the university, and he interviewed, he actually worked over at the Center for Macular Degeneration. He spent a lot of time with Ed Stone, a lot of time with medical students, with family members, with patients, really trying to understand as much as he could about the process of losing your sight. And so then what happened is he wrote this play, and the reason for this is we really wanted a chance to be able to show doctors what patients and family members actually go through to really build more compassion in doctors and help them really understand how difficult this is. And so then Rindy came in September, this was in 2010, and he cast this with University of Iowa students from the theater department, and then he rehearsed with them, and finally the play happened. And it was so successful. First of all, the medical field loved it so much. They said the terminology was correct. They said for once they've seen a blind person portrayed correctly. Doris Duke, absolutely, they went on and on about it. They were very pleased. But more than anything, the students were taken by this. The students who performed in the play, first of all, they loved being with Rindy. Rindy has his own style. But more than anything, they learned about the world of disabilities. And they really learned and could understand as they go forward in their own lives, what a person who has a disability has to encounter. And so Doris Duke, as I said, they loved our work. They came back and they said, we want you to do more of this work on campus. Rindy kept on talking about how happy he was with the collaborative spirit that he saw at the University of Iowa campus. He said he's never seen that before, how people work so well together. And so Doris Duke came back and they said, now we want you to apply for a sustaining grant. And they said, think about a way that you can do more of this work on campus. So Gene Foreman is a very dear friend of ours. Gene is the director of the Center for Teaching on campus. And really the difficulty that we usually find is connecting with faculty and really finding faculty who have an interest in the project that we are wanting to put together. It's just making the connections. And so Jean, I think almost every year, she does an institute for faculty members where she brings them together and she does a lot of pedagogy and she really teaches faculty about ways. It's professional development for faculty is what it boils down to. So we put together an institute. We call it the Creative Campus Institute, and Doris Duke funded this. And we invited faculty for 3 days to come to learn how to integrate Hancher and the performing arts into the classroom. This was in May of 2011. And so G did her typical email out to the faculty to try to get faculty, encourage them to apply. We ended up having 12 faculty members that we accepted, 12 fellows, and it was just what we wanted. We had faculty members from epidemiology, from law, from rhetoric, English, African American studies, history. I think we had one from theater arts. Otherwise, it was all over the academy, all over the campus, which pleased us, pleased us very, very much, because there again, we wanted to find a way to have faculty from other areas outside of the arts learn how to integrate the arts into their campus, into their curricula. And so we had 3 terrific days. We brought in a speaker, Matt Ulat. He is the director of the Center for Teaching at Amherst, University of Massachusetts. And then we had Sean Lewis, who is a local playwright. The two of them led 2 days. And what they did with the faculty is they really, especially Matt, his purpose was to really teach faculty how to draw more out of students, how to get students more engaged. Because, every classroom there are students who, it's trouble kind of getting things out of them. And he ended up really showing ways to really increase participation, showing ways to get students to talk about difficult issues, really explaining ways for students and faculty to really get to know each other even better. And then Sean, as an actor, he talked a lot about really some of the acting that can be done in a classroom to help faculty. He even really focused on the interview process. And then the 3rd day, the faculty members then presented to us a way in their own syllabus how they were going to integrate Hancher into their schedule for the next year. So afterwards, we surveyed faculty and we talked to them, and there were a couple faculty members especially that I remember said that they would never look at their work again in the same way. They were just taken by this, and they learned so much. Other faculty members said that, we can't wait to start thinking now about how to use this as a way to integrate Hancher into our classroom. So, obviously it was successful. We generated 12 new friends across campus. Those 12 friends have been talking, and, I guess the end result of this is that we've generated a lot of relationships that are so meaningful. And one, I got to tell you, one story that came out of this is that this was in May of 2011. Lena Hill, she was back then an associate professor in English and African American Studies. And Lena has done her scholarly research on the visual elements of Invisible Man. And so what happened is in June, a month after the Institute, Lena got an email from this producer and director in New York City. His name is Chris McElron, finding something about Fanny Ellison graduating from the University of Iowa back in, I think it was 1949, in theater arts. And she was not allowed to perform on stage because she was black. She was African American. And so the more he looked at the University of Iowa, all of a sudden he stumbled across Lena Hill. And he was staging this play of Invisible Man. It was going to open at the Court Theater in January. And he was to the point that he really needed to work on the staging of the play, the visual elements of the play. So he emails Lena, and Lena gets this email from this producer, director, saying that he wants to come to the University of Iowa. He would love to do a week-long residency where Lena could help him, with helping to stage the play, Invisible Man, and then he would spend time in the classroom because Invisible Man is read at the college level. Lena said to herself, I don't know how to do a residency. I've never done this before. There was some money involved. And so all of a sudden she thought back to the Institute the month before. And so she emailed me and then called me. And within a matter of 3 to maybe 4 weeks, we had the most amazing residency set up. I've been here for 28 years, and I think this was the most satisfying thing that I've ever done. So what happened is I think we had 12 departments across campus, and including organizations in the community that were part of this. We put together a residency. It was called Iowa, an Invisible Man, Making Blackness Visible. And so Chris came here in November, spent a week with us, the end of November, first part of December. He, of course, spent a lot of time with Lena. He went into classrooms where he brought the script, and he had students up on their feet reading lines from Invisible Man. It was so interactive. It was just so pleasing. But then what we did to bring this back to the University of Iowa is during that week, we really researched and studied the African American experience back at the University of Iowa in 1949 to the early 50s. And we even had a panel of black Hawkeyes that were here at the university at that time. And some of the stories that came out were really I don't know, so some of them heartwarming, but some of them really kind of real disappointing too. People talked about Elizabeth Tate. Elizabeth Tate, now after one of the high schools is named after her, she housed African American young boys because they were not allowed to live in the dorms. Elizabeth Catlett, she was the first ever MFA in sculpture. She was African American, and she and Fanny Ellison were actually roommates. And of course, they couldn't live in the dorms. But we found out later that Elizabeth Catlett actually had made a sculpture of Ralph Ellison that was in a park in New York City. So all of these crazy things happened during this week, and we ended up, Lena told me once or twice, she said, Chuck, I've learned so much about the university through this process, through really working together. And out of the 12, I can't name them all probably, but we had as partners on this, the Provost Office, the Center for Teaching, the Center for Diversity, the African American Museum in Cedar Rapids, who else? The History Department, the English Department, African American Studies, of course, Hancher, University Libraries. And what was so great about this whole project is that everybody assumed their role. Everybody did what they did best. And Hancher quietly stood to the side. We were kind of what I called the producer. We found the funds to make it happen. We scheduled, we found, rooms for all of these events to take place. Of course, we didn't have our building. And we produced all the marketing materials. And once this week was all over with, everybody went back to their own world. But yet, we all together feel so good about what we did that if another project comes along, we'll all jump on board and we'll all work together again. And the topper of it was Lena goes to the Bethel Church here in Iowa City, and she said the Sunday after this week of residency activities, She said, Chuck, she said, you wouldn't believe the response from people at our church. She said they were so taken by this thoughtful residency. And they said, you know, they knew a lot of work, but more than anything, a lot of thought had gone into it. And then another great thing about it too is there were students at all the activities all throughout the week. And it was a lot of the same students coming back and back and back again. So we obviously just felt so good about that activity. So another project that I want to share with you that shows that Hancher is more than a building, and this relates back to the flood, is that this last summer we culminated a project that we called Living with Floods. And this was a project that really was all about inside the university, but also statewide. We really went out into communities, and I'll try to tell you as quickly as I can about this, but it's a multi-layered project. But I want to tell you, everybody who was involved in this, there were 7 departments in the university, and we visited and partnered with 7 communities across the state. So it was Hancher, the College of Engineering, College of Education, I Explore STEM, the State Hygienic Lab, the Center for Global and Regional Environmental Research, and the Iowa Flood Center. And we partnered and worked with communities, Des Moines, Council Bluffs, Dubuque, Cedar Rapids, Davenport, Muscatine, and Iowa City. And this was all about commemorating the 5-year anniversary of our flood. This was 2008, 2013. But since Western Iowa was involved, we also commemorated the 2nd anniversary of 2011. That's when their flood happened. So it was all about living with floods. And what we wanted to do here is we wanted to have an educational component to it, but we also wanted to have a celebration, and a chance for us all to think about how far we've come. And so what we did on the College of Ed, when they came on board, we really struggled with this. We decided in these communities, we really wanted to reach out to middle schools. We wanted middle schools to be a part of this. And so the College of Education, the College of Engineering organized an institute. This was a flood institute, and this was supported by Hancher donors, where we invited middle school teachers to come for a weekend. This was the latter part of November, first part of December. And they came for a weekend to really develop with the College of Ed faculty and the College of Engineering faculty flood-related curricula that they could then take back to their schools, and they could work with the students and have the students have the opportunity to learn more about flooding, especially in Iowa. And what I enjoyed about this is that we didn't want just, you think about it, science and geography teachers, you think middle schools, but we wanted music teachers, we wanted art teachers, we wanted creative writing teachers also to be a part of this. And so what was really interesting is when they came that weekend for the Institute, the music teachers said, I've never worked with the science teachers before. And we made that happen. I just loved it. But we wanted to show that in order to come back from a natural disaster, it takes everybody. We all have to work together. So these teachers, of course, had a fabulous weekend. They went back and in the spring rolled out the curricula. And I'll talk a little in a minute about some of the things that they did. And so then also in the spring, Larry Weber, Carmen Langle, and people from the Iowa Flood Center held forums in these communities. And these were adult workshops talking about current flood issues, but more than anything, talking about the Iowa Flood Center, so they could have an opportunity to really share the resources that they have and how they reach out to the state. And then there were STEM festivals, and this was a result of 2 women who we connected with at the university through somebody else who was helping us with the educational component. But Gina Schodeman and Beth Hulkstedler, they did a STEM festival. I think you all hopefully know what a STEM festival is. They did a STEM festival in Iowa City about a year and a half before this, but they had this vision and this goal of doing STEM festivals across the state. Once they found about our project, they said, we want to be a part of this. And so I think 5 of the 7 communities then had STEM festivals. And that's bringing young people into an event, a festival, where they can learn about careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. One little story I really got a kick out of is, and this was in Muscatine. You've all heard of the Stanley Foundation in Muscatine. This is an engineering firm that really does work all around the world. Well, Gail Roberts is the president of the Stanley Foundation. And she presented at their STEM festival, and what she did, and there are a lot of little girls there, you know, in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. She presented and she talked about her life as an engineer. She talked about the people she had met. She talked about the travels that she had done. She talked about, you know, just the joy of helping people and also the money she makes. And all of these young little girls were hearing this and hopefully inspired some, even 1 or 2 of them, to maybe someday pursue a career in engineering. So you're probably wondering where Hancher comes in on all of this. We ended up then, at the very end of this, taking Preservation Hall Jazz Band around for a statewide tour in all of these communities, and we had free outdoor performances. And Preservation Hall Jazz Band was so appropriate because of all of their experience with floods in Katrina. And they love sharing their stories with the stories in the people in these communities to learn more about the Iowa floods. And there was one little cute little happening that happened in Davenport that I want to share. The LeClaire Park Band Shell in Davenport. Do you all know? Does anybody know where that is? Right along the river. It's just charming, just beautiful band shell. Well, we scheduled the dates for all of the concerts, and then we, after that, then found the locations. And so we had our heart set on the LeClaire Park Band Shell, and what happened is when we called our partners in Davenport, each community we had a committee of people who we worked with. They looked it up and they said, oh, the 14th is full. You know, somebody has reserved it for the 14th because they're going to have a concert on the 15th and they want the 14th for setup. So we were real disappointed, and I said, could we come and meet with this group and see if somehow we could have our concert and then reset for their evening of the 15th. So we got there at right along the Mississippi. The setting is just gorgeous. We were there with our committee, then all of a sudden these 2 women drove up. They had big smiles on their faces. These were 2 black women, and we found out that the concert on the 15th was their Juneteenth concert. When they found out we wanted to have Preservation Hall Jazz Band, they hugged us and they said, this is perfect. You know, what a kickoff for our concert. So the project was full of all those sorts of things happening. You know, what happened in Davenport in terms of this middle school, you know, living with floods, the flood curricula, is we got there, and as I said, the site was so glorious right along the river. There were at least 25 big murals that these students had made with topics all related to floods. You know, they had, some of them had the history of the Mississippi. There was one that even had the roots of jazz, talking about jazz because of Preservation Hall Jazz Band. There were some about water quality. There was even one about this total living with floods and how we connected all of these communities together. So I was taken by that. And the band was taken. The band looked at that and they just couldn't believe what these kids had come up with. So we ended up taking some of those murals and, excuse me, we had a big exhibit then at the State Fair to really show, you know, what that project had been all about. So we have also a wonderful relationship with the College of Public Health. I want to tell you 2 things that we're doing, or one we've done and one we're going to be doing with the College of Public Health. Sue Curry, the dean, and I were very good friends, but we see such a match between Hancher and the College of Public Health. She always says that the College of Public Health demystifies Hancher, and I always say that Hancher, you know, or the College of Public Health, for us really gives us this academic credibility, you know. So the 2 of us really work together so well. So last spring, in May, we had a theater piece, Broken Chord. I don't know if anybody saw that piece. Did you see it?
No, my friend worked on it.
It was so great. So this was with Working Group Theater. I mentioned Sean Lewis earlier. He's the artistic director. Working Group Theater is a local but nationally recognized theater company. And what's interesting is Hancher is all about presenting touring professional artists. But because of a result of this flood and because Working Group Theater is so terrific, and they really look at local issues, and they're so community minded and so community spirited that we are now on to this year, our 3rd and 4th commissions with them. But Broken Chord was a commission that really explored the impact of Alzheimer's on patients, but more than anything on caregivers. Because one thing Working Group Theater likes to do is they like to really focus on the invisible audience, the audience you never hear from, and people who really need to be heard from. So this was a real partnership again with Hancher, of course Working Group Theater, the College of Public Health, the Center for Aging. As you know, our university now is really focusing on aging. I think Iowa now is what, fourth with 65 and over. We rank fourth in the country with a population of 65 and over, and I think it's fifth for 85 and over. So obviously our university has taken note of this, and we have our Center for Aging, we have the cluster hire now for aging. So we also had the College of Social Work as a partner, and then in the community, it was Oak Knoll Retirement Center, Hospice, and Alzheimer's Association, and the Senior Center. And more than anything, what we wanted to do is we really wanted to raise the level of awareness of Alzheimer's and the issues for caregivers. We also wanted to, there again, have correct terminology. We wanted to make sure that what we were saying was accurate. We also wanted an intergenerational approach. We wanted young people to integrate and work with older people. And together, we put our goals together, and we achieved all of these goals. And what was so great and so wonderful about this is the College of Public Health did surveys afterwards. I mean, there again, our partnership is wonderful because they can do things that we can't do. Documentation, evaluation, all of that sort of stuff is tough, but they're experienced with that. They really know how to do that professionally. But the biggest joy of this was passive understanding. We really achieved the idea of this live theater performance and having people who have never been a caregiver or people who have never experienced anything like that before to understand what caregivers go through. Afterwards, and still I hear people talking about how powerful and how that piece was just more than they had even hoped or anticipated. So we have another project we're working on this year with, again, Working Group Theater and the College of Public Health. And this is all about cyberbullying. We have talked a lot to school administration. Cyberbullying is a huge issue in the schools. We all read about youth who have committed suicide. You know, we read about a lot of the ramifications of cyberbullying, but it seems like it's tough to find effective tools to be able to curb cyberbullying. So we are working, and College of Public Health is helping us with this, is that they've done a lot of research and they have a lot of federal grants for this. We're using their research to develop curriculum-related lesson plans that we will give to the teachers, and then in November, this piece that Working Group Theater is working on, we will present it to all the 7th and 8th graders in our community. But then what's so interesting about this is that after the play, we will do surveys, we will try to find out about the impact of this on the students, and that will go back and help them develop more research, because one thing they're looking at is to see if emotionally stimulated activities can affect behavior in adolescence. So it's such a great partnership. I can't talk enough about Hancher and the College of Public Health. And so I'm hoping, and what's great about this too is the fact that we're hoping to take this statewide, because, and you know, nationwide, this is not even an issue that's isolated to Iowa, but there is a real need for it, a terrific need for it. So all this stuff has been great. All this stuff has been wonderful that we've done without a building. But I do have to say that we are very anxious to turn the key on our new Hancher. One of the things that would always come up, Invisible Man, you know, things that we did with, we did a lot of workshops around broken cord. Where are we going to do this stuff? Where are we going to have it happen? So having a home and having a building is very critical. And what I want to tell everybody is that as we've been doing this work, we've also been designing this hall. Go ahead. Thank you. And so it's been great because we've been able to think about what we need while doing our work inside this new hall. So much thought has gone in to putting together the new building. And I look at this as being a creative hub of the university. I want faculty, I want students, I want staff, I want people from the community to gather with artists and I think we can conquer the world. I think we can make anything happen in this building. We're going to have a theater. Go ahead if you want to. Thank you. We're going to have a theater that is going to be 1,800 seats. 2,500 seats was the old theater. It's going to be much smaller, much more intimate. And the architects said we hit a sweet spot architecturally, aesthetically, and acoustically. They said it's just going to be a very intimate theater that both audience and artists are going to just dearly love. And we're going to have this rehearsal space, and I think about digital arts, the things that can happen in that rehearsal space, about 3,000 square feet. We're not going to have the equipment, but we sure want to be great hosts, and we want people to bring whatever they need in. And there again, we want this to be a real creative hub for the university. So, as Audrey's showing, you know, that's great. These are, this of course is the main hall. As I said, 1,800 seats. I love the lighting, the suspended LED lights. Those are the house lights. Francesca is the lighting designer. Said she's never done that anywhere else before. A lot of firsts for Hancher. You can see here, these are all seating areas. They're the, whatever you want to call, people have different terms for those. Someone would say that's where the president sits. But those are all for acoustical purposes. And then there's a silver mesh that covers that to cover the acoustical properties, and they're lit from the front and lit from below. Obviously, the color scheme is a beautiful, different shades of green, the cherry wood. I would say that it's going to be one of the finest halls in the country. If you want to maybe show that video? Yeah, that video. I always love to think about what President Sandy Boyd said, and what he continues to say about Hancher is that Hancher is one of the largest classrooms on campus. And I think that is so appropriate. I just think that fits us to a T.